Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a high of 80.6 degrees with a low of 55.8 degrees, so it should be a pleasant day to be outside. In our top stories, we are examining why thousands of federal prosecutions in New Jersey have been thrown into legal limbo. We are also looking into the reasons why California is changing the rules and making it much more challenging for homeowners to install rooftop solar panels. Along with these reports, we have several other significant stories that we will be diving into throughout this episode. We have a lot of important information to get through today. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. We start today with a major story shaking the federal justice system. A judge has declared the entire leadership of the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey unconstitutional. Ethan covers legal affairs for us and has been following this closely. Ethan, what exactly happened here?
So 2 days ago, on Monday, U.S. District Judge Matthew Brand dropped a 130-page ruling that essentially disqualified everyone running the New Jersey Federal Prosecutor's Office. He found that 3 officials handpicked by the Trump administration were serving illegally. The judge called the arrangement an illegal power grab and said it violates the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. It's one of the most forceful judicial rebukes of executive authority we've seen in years.
3 officials running one office? How did that arrangement even come about?
Right, so this goes back to December 2025. According to Gothamist and the Associated Press, after former acting U.S. Attorney Alina Habba resigned, Attorney General Pam Bondi installed 3 people to split her duties. Philip Lamparello, Jordan Fox, and Ari Fontecchio each took a slice of the office, handling criminal, civil, and administrative work respectively. Judge Brand called this a Byzantine structure, basically arguing it was designed to dodge the constitutional requirement that U.S. attorneys be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate.
And the judge wasn't buying the administration's justification for it?
Not at all. The Department of Justice argued this was just administrative necessity, that they needed people in those roles and this was a practical solution. But the Washington Post highlighted one of the judge's most striking lines. He said the administration tried to dress its actions in sheep's wool, but, quote, "This wolf comes as a wolf," end quote. Brand's core argument is that U.S. attorneys are what the Constitution calls principal officers. You can't just dilute or disaggregate that role among multiple unconfirmed subordinates to avoid going through the Senate.
Now, you mentioned Alina Habba. She's a familiar name. How does she fit into all of this?
She's really the origin of this entire crisis. According to AOL and Gothamist, Habba was President Trump's former personal defense attorney. She was installed as acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey in early 2025, but her tenure ran into legal trouble almost immediately. The key moment came in July 2025, when the administration formally withdrew her nomination for the permanent role. Legal analysts say that was a tactical move to reset the clock under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, which would have given her another 210 days as an acting official without needing Senate confirmation.
Did that clock trick actually work?
It did not. In August 2025, Judge Brand ruled her appointment was illegal because she'd exceeded the time limits for interim officials. An appeals court upheld that ruling in December, which led to her resignation. She then moved into a senior advisor role at the Justice Department, and she's been vocal about it on social media, calling Brand's rulings, quote, ridiculous, end quote, and accusing judges of, quote, complete overreach, end quote, to obstruct the administration's agenda.
So between Habba leaving and the triumvirate taking over, was there anyone else in the picture?
Yes, and this is a really important chapter. According to Newsweek and the Washington Post, after Habba's initial 120-day interim term expired in July 2025, a panel of federal district court judges stepped in. They used their authority under a federal statute to appoint a veteran career prosecutor named Desiree Lee Grace as the interim U.S. attorney. This is an established legal mechanism. It's meant to be a safeguard for exactly this kind of situation.
I'm guessing the administration didn't welcome that appointment?
That's an understatement. Attorney General Bondi fired Desiree Lee Grace just hours after the judges appointed her. Hours. Bondi called the judges, quote, rogue, end quote, and, quote, politically minded, end quote. Legal scholars like Steve Vladeck and analysts at Jurist debated whether Bondi even had the authority to do that. The president can remove a U.S. attorney under federal law, but whether the attorney general can unilaterally fire a court-appointed official is highly disputed. It was an unprecedented confrontation between the executive branch and the judiciary.
So the administration has basically rejected every path that didn't put their own people in the office?
That's exactly what Judge Brand concluded in his ruling Monday. He laid out 3 methods the administration could have used that are, in his words, undisputedly legal. First, the standard route, presidential nomination and Senate confirmation. Second, the Attorney General can appoint someone for up to 120 days. Third, the district court can appoint an interim leader until a Senate-confirmed successor is in place. Brand said the administration ignored all 3 of these and instead pursued what he called novel personnel maneuvers to keep unconfirmed loyalists in power.
Is this just a New Jersey problem, or is it happening elsewhere?
It's happening across the country. Similar acting appointments have been struck down in Nevada, Los Angeles, and northern New York. But the most dramatic consequence so far came out of Virginia. According to the Miami Times, a federal judge there recently dismissed indictments that had been brought by acting U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan against New York Attorney General Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. The judge ruled Halligan's appointment was unconstitutional and declared her actions a nullity. That word, nullity, is significant. It means those prosecutorial actions are treated as if they never happened.
Could we see the same thing happen in New Jersey with cases getting thrown out?
That's the looming threat. Judge Brand issued what legal commentators are calling a nuclear warning. He hasn't dismissed current indictments yet, but he said, quote, any further attempts to unlawfully fill the office will result in dismissals of pending cases, end quote. He also flagged a specific case, United States v. Torres, where the indictment was signed by Haba during her contested tenure. He's requested further briefing to determine whether that indictment has to be voided entirely. We're talking about potentially thousands of federal prosecutions now sitting in legal limbo.
That's a staggering number. So where do things actually stand right now, as of today?
As of this morning, the triumvirate is technically still in place. Judge Brand stayed the implementation of his disqualification order to give the Department of Justice time to appeal to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. So Lamparello, Fox, and Fontecchio can continue operating for the moment. But legal experts warn that every prosecution currently handled by that office has a cloud hanging over it. Defense attorneys in New Jersey are almost certainly preparing challenges based on this ruling.
Has the administration taken any steps toward a permanent nominee?
They have not, and that's what makes this so remarkable. CBS News and Democracy Docket both report that the Trump administration still has not submitted a formal nomination to the Senate for a permanent U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey. Instead, they're choosing to fight this out in court, essentially doubling down on the argument that the executive branch has broad authority over these appointments. It's a high-stakes legal gamble. If the Third Circuit upholds Brand's ruling, the administration will be right back where it started, with no confirmed leader and thousands of cases at risk.
What's the timeline on that appeal?
It's hard to say precisely. Third Circuit cases can move at different speeds depending on urgency. Given that federal prosecutions are hanging in the balance, there's reason to think the court could expedite this. But we're likely looking at weeks, possibly months, before we get a definitive answer. And of course, the losing side could try to take it to the Supreme Court after that, which would extend this even further.
So for now, we wait and watch the Third Circuit.
Exactly. The stay keeps the current arrangement alive temporarily. But the constitutional question is far from settled. This is really shaping up to be one of the defining separation of powers battles of this administration, and whatever the appellate courts decide will set a major precedent for how federal prosecutors are appointed going forward.
Ethan, thank you for walking us through all of that. We'll stay on this one.
Thanks, Grace.
Our second story this morning involves a major legal blow to rooftop solar owners across California. Chloe covers energy policy for us and has been following this case closely. Chloe, what happened yesterday?
A three-judge panel in California's First District Court of Appeal upheld a 2022 decision by state regulators to slash payments that solar homeowners receive for excess energy they send back to the grid. We're talking about cuts of roughly 75 to 80%, according to both CalMatters and LAist. The policy is known as NEM 3.0, or the Net Billing Tariff, and it's been in effect since April 2023. Yesterday's ruling essentially locks it in as legally sound.
Now, this case has bounced around the courts for a while. Can you walk us through that?
It really has been a ping-pong match. The appeals court initially sided with regulators, but then last August, the California Supreme Court stepped in. The justices said the lower court had been, quote, unduly deferential, end quote, to the Public Utilities Commission. They ordered a fresh, more rigorous review of the actual substance of the arguments. But even after taking that harder look, the appeals court arrived at the same conclusion yesterday. They said the CPUC has the technical expertise and authority to manage the grid and set these rates.
Did the court address any of the environmental arguments that solar advocates raised?
It did, and this is where advocates are really frustrated. The court specifically said that while state law does require, quote, sustainable growth, end quote, of the solar market, it doesn't require regulators to protect the profit margins or historical growth rates of the solar installation industry. The judges also rejected claims that the CPUC had failed to account for the broader environmental and social benefits of rooftop solar. So the court gave regulators wide latitude here, and that's a tough pill for the environmental groups that brought this challenge.
Let's get into the nuts and bolts of what changed. How much less are solar owners actually getting paid now?
The difference is dramatic. Utility Dive and PV Magazine USA have both laid this out clearly. Under the old rules, NEM 1.0 and 2.0, homeowners were paid close to retail rates for the power they exported, often around 30 cents per kilowatt hour. Under NEM 3.0, they're paid based on what's called avoided cost, which is basically what the utility saves by not buying that power somewhere else. That averages roughly 8 cents per kilowatt hour, so you're going from 30 cents down to 8 cents overnight.
That's a huge drop. What does that mean practically for someone thinking about putting panels on their roof?
It fundamentally changes the math. Experts say the solar-only business model is essentially dead in California now. If you install panels without a battery, you're selling most of your excess power back at that low 8-cent rate. And the system just doesn't pay for itself quickly enough. The payback period has roughly doubled, going from about 5 or 6 years under the old rules to 10 years or more now. To make the economics work, homeowners basically have to pair panels with battery storage, something like a Tesla Powerwall, so they can store energy during the day and use it in the evening instead of selling it back cheaply.
That obviously adds thousands of dollars to the upfront cost. So why did regulators make this change in the first place?
The central argument was something called the cost shift. The big three utilities, PG&E, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, argued the old system was unfair to non-solar customers. Their case was that solar owners were effectively zeroing out their electric bills while still relying on the grid. They used the wires, the transformers, the infrastructure, and the cost of maintaining all of that was being shifted onto everyone else, including low-income households and renters who can't install solar. That argument persuaded the CPUC to act.
But solar advocates push back hard on that framing, don't they?
They absolutely do. Groups like the Center for Biological Diversity, the Environmental Working Group, and the Protect Our Communities Foundation say this cost shift narrative was manufactured to protect utility profits. CalMatters has pointed out an important wrinkle here. Utilities earn a guaranteed rate of return on infrastructure they build, things like power lines and substations. But they can't earn that same return on privately owned rooftop solar panels. So there's a financial incentive for utilities to discourage rooftop solar. Advocates also argue the CPUC ignored roughly $1.5 billion in net benefits that rooftop solar provided to all ratepayers in 2024 by reducing the need for expensive new transmission lines.
So what has the real-world impact been since NEM 3.0 took effect nearly 3 years ago?
It's been devastating for the industry. California's residential solar market was once the largest in the country, and it's seen a 60 to 80% drop in new sales since April 2023. Solar advocacy groups report more than 17,000 jobs have been lost statewide as installation companies have struggled or gone bankrupt. And here's what really frustrates people. The whole justification was to bring down costs for non-solar customers, but electricity rates have kept climbing anyway.
That's striking. If bills aren't going down, what's driving the increases?
NPR and CalMatters both point out that California residents now face the second highest energy rates in the country. In January 2024 alone, PG&E residential customers saw a 13% average increase. The main culprits are wildfire mitigation costs, things like burying power lines underground, and broader infrastructure modernization. Those expenses can account for up to 27% of a utility's total revenue requirement. So the cost shift from solar was always just one piece of a much larger puzzle, and the bigger cost drivers haven't gone away.
Has there been any political response to all of this?
There has, and it's picking up steam. Governor Gavin Newsom recently shook up leadership at the Public Utilities Commission to focus on consumer affordability. Just 2 days ago, on March 9th, John Reynolds officially took over as CPUC president, replacing Alice Reynolds. He's been tasked with overseeing what they're calling an affordability agenda. That includes a $60 billion bill refund program created by a 2025 law and a push to lower the authorized profits, the return on equity for major utilities.
Are lawmakers also trying to undo NEM 3.0 through legislation?
Several bills are in play this session. The most ambitious is AB 2619 from Assemblymember Damon Connolly. It's being called the repeal effort, and it would rescind NEM 3.0 entirely and mandate a new solar compensation structure by 2027 that aligns with California's 100% clean energy goal. There's also SB 868 from Senator Scott Wiener, known as the Plug-and-Play Solar Act. That one targets renters by streamlining balcony solar and portable devices so people can bypass utility interconnection fees.
Are there any other bills worth mentioning?
2 more stand out. SB 1233 is currently a spot bill, which means it's a placeholder. Advocates are hoping to amend it to include a minimum reimbursement floor for exported energy so homeowners would at least have a guaranteed baseline payment. Then there's AB 942 from Assemblymember Lisa Calderon, and this one actually goes in the opposite direction. It would sunset the legacy NEM 1.0 and 2.0 contracts after 10 years, and end grandfathering protections for homebuyers. So it would expand the reach of the lower rates, rather than roll them back.
Speaking of grandfathering, where do homeowners who already have solar stand right now?
If you installed your system before April 2023, you're locked into the higher rates for 20 years from your original activation date. That protection remains in place regardless of yesterday's ruling. But for anyone who's installed since or is considering it now, the economics are tough. Low reimbursements mean battery storage isn't just a nice add-on anymore, it's practically a requirement. And that adds significant cost to an already big investment.
Is there any chance this gets overturned on a final appeal?
Advocacy groups say they're evaluating whether to take this to the California Supreme Court one more time, but legal analysts are skeptical a reversal would happen now. Remember, the Supreme Court already sent this back once and told the appeals court to take a harder look. The appeals court did exactly that and still sided with regulators. That makes it very difficult to argue the process was flawed. So barring legislative action, NEM 3.0 appears to be the law of the land for the foreseeable future.
A complicated story with a lot at stake for homeowners and the solar industry alike. Chloe, thanks for breaking all of that down for us.
Happy to do it.
Here are some other headlines. On Tuesday, March 11, 2026, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un took his teenage daughter Kim Joo-ae for some high-stakes father-daughter bonding. They observed the test firing of strategic cruise missiles from the newly developed 5,000-ton naval destroyer, the Chohaeon. These projectiles spent nearly 3 hours cruising over the West Sea before successfully striking target islands. Kim emphasized the necessity of maintaining a powerful and reliable nuclear deterrent, describing this as a multi-dimensional operational phase for his nuclear forces. This miscellaneous activity is viewed as a direct provocation against the 11-day Freedom Shield joint military drills currently being conducted by the United States and South Korea. Analysts suggest that young Joo-ae's continued presence at such major strategic events confirms she is being guided into a successor role, ensuring the family business remains a sure thing. In the desert, things are heating up as Arizona State Senate President Warren Peterson confirmed on March 9, 2026, that the Federal Bureau of Investigation has checked in on records from the controversial 2021 partisan audit of the 2020 election in Maricopa County. Peterson stated he complied with a federal grand jury subpoena, noting that the FBI has the records. While local county officials were not directly served, Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes and Attorney General Chris Mays are worried the Department of Justice is trying to relitigate a certified election. This follows a similar federal seizure of 700 boxes of election materials in Georgia. While Governor Katie Hobbs warns of the weaponization of law enforcement, President Trump has counted the move as a necessary step. This legal recount leaves many wondering if personal voter data was exposed by the now shuttered firm Cyber Ninjas. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security is looking for a parental figure, specifically unfettered access to the Federal Parent Locator Service. This massive government database contains the names, addresses, and salary information of every employed person in the United States. While legally restricted to child support enforcement, the administration wants to track down undocumented immigrants for targeted workplace raids. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may have the final say-so on this request. Privacy experts fear this data mining could expose sensitive family records and erode trust. It's a taxing situation, especially since appointees from the Department of Government Efficiency briefly poked around the database last year before court intervention. If you've been chatting up an artificial intelligence about your legal woes, a New York federal court has some intelligent advice. Keep it to yourself. On March 11, 2026, Judge Jed S. Rakoff ruled in United States v. Hepner that conversations with public chatbots like Claude do not qualify for attorney-client privilege. Since robots aren't licensed to practice law, the court found users lack a reasonable expectation of confidentiality, and you can't, bot TLE, up those prompts from prosecutors. New York is even considering Senate Bill S. 7263 to delete the ability of AI to give unauthorized legal advice. It's a biting reminder that your digital confessions might be discoverable in a court of law rhythms. Finally, a whirlwind of weather hit the Midwest on the evening of March 10th and the morning of March 11th. Tornadoes tore through northeastern Illinois and northwestern Indiana, leaving a trail of destruction. In Lake Village, Newton County Sheriff Shannon Cothran reported multiple homes were destroyed and residents were injured during a direct hit. In Illinois, a stovepipe tornado tracked from the Kankakee County Fairgrounds through Aroma Park, downing power lines and overwhelming emergency centers. Kankakee also saw record-breaking hail measuring 5.2 inches, the highest severe weather risk the region has faced in years. This stormy start to the season follows a separate system that claimed 6 lives in Michigan and Oklahoma. As the clouds clear, local officials are bracing for a long recovery from this sky-high disaster. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.6, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.